The famous eat, play, sleep newborn routine. Ugh, I wish I would have known this before having my baby. So that way I would have avoided, sleepless nights reading and studying like what I should be doing or what I can do in order to help my baby sleep better, get better feedings through, down. Um, I would have slept much better in the beginning. I wish I was a little bit more prepared. And that's why I'm here to help you understand your baby's sleep needs so that way you can help your baby sleep. So, eat, play, sleep newborn routine, what is it? So, the idea is that you never feed your baby to sleep. Now, this can be a controversial topic. However, if you want to feed your baby to sleep, it is totally up to you, and it's okay if you want to do it. If it works for your family, then continue to do it. You don't have to do these things. But if you want your baby to learn how to fall asleep independently, I highly recommend doing the eat, play, sleep routine. So the idea is that you never feed your baby to sleep, like I said. You offer a full feeding. It doesn't matter if your baby is breastfed or bottle fed. You offer a full feeding. Encourage the full feeding. If your baby falls asleep during the feeding, and make sure that you tickle them, get them to wake, tickle their cheek, tickle their nose, tickle their feet, take the socks off, take the PJs off. Do what you have to do to keep your baby engaged in the feeding. Keep them awake and make sure that they are no longer hungry once they're done feeding. Then after they're feeding, play with them. Play. You can do tummy time, you can read a book, you can take a trip to Target, you can do anything that that you need to get done. You can shake a rattle, you can talk to them. In the newborn phase, their wake windows or the time between sleep is much shorter, so the play is not going to be, very long. But play with them for a little while and then lay them down to sleep. Now, we are always responsive to hunger cues. If your baby is showing hunger signs, feed your baby, okay? Also, another thing to know is that if your baby wakes from a nap and it's not time for a feeding or they're just not hungry, then move on to the play section. And then if you have to feed before or your baby is hungry before their next sleep, what you need to do is offer the feeding, but then make sure you keep them engaged and awake, and then put them down to sleep so they can learn to fall asleep independently. Okay, so you're always going to be responsive to hunger cues, so don't take this the wrong way. You are not going to let your baby starve. You are going to respond to those hunger cues. If you have to wake to feed, then wake to feed your baby. Eat, play, sleep routine. Feed your baby, play with them a little while, and place them down to sleep. When you are putting your baby down to sleep, in the newborn phase, it's really helpful if you swaddle them. You can swaddle your baby, turn on a white noise machine. You can offer a pacifier if you want to, especially if they're fussy, they really, really help. And put your baby down in the crib. Give them, a little bit of time to relax themselves and fall into that sleep. Now, they might cry, they might fuss, and just give them a few seconds. You can give them 30 seconds if you want to, even a minute if you want to. Just pay attention to your baby. Is your baby fussing, whining, or are they crying? If they're in a hysterical state, pick your baby up and rock them, shush them, comfort your baby. But if your baby just fussing a little bit, that's not crying. That's just fussing, and they're learning a new skill. They're trying to figure things out. Pay attention, just pause, that famous pause. Pause, watch what they're doing. Is their fussing and whining slowly fading away? Are their eyes slowly closing and falling asleep? Like, pay attention. If it's increasing in intensity, then obviously, pick your baby up and comfort them. Don't let your baby be in distress. So we are always, to recap this, we are always responding to hunger cues, and we're not starving our babies, and we are, watching and really looking to see what they're doing. Are they just whining and fussing because they're trying to figure out how to fall asleep? Or are they really crying and upset and in distress? If you have to wake your baby in the beginning to feed, continue to do that every so often, however your pediatrician recommends you do. It is really important that in the newborn phase, you just let your baby sleep as much as they want. We'll get into waking your baby after a 2-hour nap later on in another video. That applies to more older babies. When should I start the eat, play, sleep routine? It's highly recommended that you start the eat, play, sleep routine somewhere in like the 2 to 3 week, 4 week mark. The first 2 weeks is like pure survival mode. You're trying to learn all your baby's cues, trying to sleep yourself, eat, like doing all these things at once. Like that initial shock of becoming a mom or dad is like very, very shocking. It's difficult, and you're trying to figure everything out, how to care for this tiny little cute little human that you created and yourself, right? Like they say, brushing your teeth is luxury. But around the 2 or 3 week mark, you kind of got a routine down, at least for yourself, or you know how your baby is working a little bit better. You recognize when they're hungry or when they're sleepy or when they need a diaper change. You're getting better at this whole mom dad thing. And when your baby wakes up in the morning, that's when you should implement the eat, play, sleep newborn routines. And it really helps to teach your baby what comes next, and get your baby tired. That is also very critical. That play part, don't overstimulate your baby, because sensory overload is not fun. But that play for your baby gets them exhausted. Like, have you ever seen like little school kids running around playing outside at recess, but then when they come home, they pass out at bedtime without a problem because they're exhausted. They used up all their energy. They played really, really hard, and they had a long day full of a lot of activities. So the whole idea with the play part with your newborn is that you get them tired. And so that could be super simple. Remember, like I used to read my daughter a book, and she would like just be staring at me and looking at the colors in the book. And after 10 minutes, that was it. She was exhausted. She was showing sleepy cues. So yeah, the play part is basically designed to get your baby tired and ready for that next step. We talked about encouraging full feedings. Always go over this information with your pediatrician. The easiest way to encourage full feedings is to undress your baby down to their diaper. You can easily keep them awake during a full feeding. Whether it's breastfed or bottle fed, it does not matter. Like I said before, tickle them. You even put a cold wipe. My daughter was such a sleepyhead. She wanted to fall asleep every 2 minutes during a feed. So we would put a cold wipe on her little feet, or even on her cheek. That helps them stay awake. So keep that feed engaging. Talk to them, stare at them in the eyes, keep them awake. It gets easier as they get older. Some things that you want to avoid, some are very critical. For example, always place your baby to sleep on their back. SIDS is a real threat when you put your baby down on your stomach. Always go over this information with your pediatrician, like I said before. Unless you're told otherwise by your pediatrician, always put your baby to sleep on their back. It is critical to prevent SIDS. Another thing to avoid is feeding to sleep, like I said. Now, if this is working for you, by all means, do it. What you want to shoot for is, teaching the healthy sleep habits 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time you can just, veer off that path. But make sure that the majority of the time you are teaching your baby all these healthy sleep habits. Another thing to avoid, I believe I mentioned this before, is during the night, you are just eating and sleeping. There is no playtime because you don't want your baby to become confused. You can use a nightlight, but don't turn on the light. Don't make that feeding engaging, at least, or entertaining. If your baby needs to feed well, then obviously engage your baby in the feeding, but all of your surroundings are going to be equivalent to your surroundings, for sleep. Bedtime and nap time routine. So these also help cue your baby into what comes next. A bedtime or nap time routine can be super simple. The actual, simpler it is, the better, in my opinion. For example, my daughter, her nap time routine was either a swaddle or a sleep sack and a pacifier, and then, I would cuddle her in my arms and put her down to sleep in her crib. That was simple, three steps. Pacifier, in that order, is what I did. Pacifier, swaddle, sleep sack, a little bit of cuddles, and then down to sleep. And then before all of that, actually, the white noise was always on before we even came to the room. That was her little nap time routine. And she knew once those things happened, what was coming. Her bedtime routine always involved a bath because she always had tummy issues, so the warm water helped her belly. We did a warm bath. We did lotion, PJs, pacifier, swaddle, or sleep sack, and then cuddles and bed. I don't like to read at night before bed. I like to do that more in the daytime as a fun activity, but you can totally read to your baby before bed. The nap time or bedtime routine is completely up to you. But one thing to keep in mind, don't feed at the end of the routine. It would be best if you could feed before the routine starts. I could have done lotion, jammies, and then feeding somewhere in the middle, and then continue on with whatever my bedtime routine was, and then put her down. Those steps in order, especially in the beginning, really help to cue your baby on what is happening next. Age-appropriate wake times for a newborn is about 45 to 60 minutes. And so in that whole 45 to 60 minutes, you have to do eat, play, sleep. That's how it works. So in that awake time, so your baby wakes up, let's say it's 1 p.m., right, from their nap. It's 1 p.m., you're gonna offer a full feeding, however long that takes. Let's say your baby took a 20-minute feed, right? So that would be at 1:20, your feeding ended, right? Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna play. Let's say we're gonna play for 10 minutes, okay? So now we're gonna play from 1:20 to 1:30. So let's say I just did 10 minutes of tummy time and we just played with a little rattle, right? And then on the floor in a baby gym or something like that. And then at 1:30, I got the pacifier, the swaddle or sleep sack, and then I gave her the pacifier, put the swaddle and sleep sack on, and then the white noise is already on. And then I cuddled her and put her down in her crib to help her slowly drift off on her own. You can stand from a little far and watch your baby do this. If your baby, remember how I said before, if your baby's in distress, comfort them and then do it again. So yes, the eat, play, sleep has to be done in the entire awake time. Now, 45 to 60 minutes it depends on your baby. My baby was extremely sensitive in the beginning with those awake times. She was on the very short end of the, awake time for that age group, newborn, so 0 to 3 months. But for the 45 to 60 minutes, that's good for like a 2-month-old kind of. With time and age, you can keep stretching it to the end of the awake time. To be clear, this does not mean you need to be extremely strict every minute, every second, and keep timing it. Just know that this is an average, and just know that by around, let's say 1:30-ish, 1:35, even 1:40, like you've got to get ready to put your baby down. So I don't want you to be a crazy person counting every second of the day. Like, don't drive yourself crazy. Just keep these things in mind and practice them. And that way you easily fall into a routine, and life is so much easier when your baby knows the routine and you're on a routine. So day and night confusion. With day and night confusion, you have to separate the two. Day and night confusion is not something that babies stay on very long or that they go back to once they learn the difference. But it's very simple. You need to work at showing your baby the difference. So daytime feedings are engaging, the lights are all on, there's noise in the background, maybe the TV's playing, some music is playing, whatever the case, maybe you've got a toddler running around or older kids running around. The daytime, lights are on, things are happening, the world is awake. But at nighttime, it's just strictly business, feed and sleep. Everything is dim, quiet. You've got that nice white noise on to help relax them. You've got to differentiate the two to help teach your baby. And once your baby learns the difference, and you will know because your baby won't be awake long during the night, they're just gonna feed and then pretty much go to sleep. And in the daytime, they'll know to stay